My name is Claire. I'm 28 years old. And the day I watched my sister steal everything my grandmother left me started with a phone call I should never have answered. My sister took my inheritance right out from under me. She looked me dead in the eye at the lawyer's office and said this is what Grandma really wanted. I walked out of that room with nothing but rage in my chest and a plan forming in my mind. But 6 months later at our family reunion, when I stood up with a folder full of proof, every single person in that room went silent. They were about to learn exactly who my sister really was. Before I tell you how it all unraveled and what I found hidden in those bank statements, let me take you back to where this nightmare began. I'm Claire standing in a funeral home 3 years ago watching my grandmother's casket lower into the ground, while my sister Jessica squeezed my hand and whispered, "We'll get through this together." I actually believed her. That was my first mistake. My grandmother Ruth raised me and Jessica after our parents died in a car accident when I was 9 and Jessica was 12. She worked 2 jobs to keep us fed and made sure we both got through college. She was strict but fair, and she always told us the same thing: family protects family, no exceptions. When she got sick with lung cancer the last 2 years of her life, I moved back home to take care of her. I quit my marketing job in Seattle and spent every day managing her medications, driving her to chemotherapy appointments, and holding her hand through the worst of it. Jessica visited twice. Once for Thanksgiving, and once 3 weeks before Grandma died, when she suddenly showed up with her husband Derek and a lawyer. At the time I thought she was finally stepping up. I was so exhausted from months of sleepless nights and watching my grandmother waste away that I didn't question why Jessica had brought legal documents to a dying woman's bedside. I should have. The day after the funeral, we gathered at the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. I expected it to be simple. Grandma had always told both of us that everything would be split equally. The house, the savings account, the small investment portfolio she'd been building for decades. 50-50. That's what she promised. But when the lawyer cleared his throat and started reading, I felt the floor tilt under me. To my granddaughter, Jessica Marie Thompson, I leave the entirety of my estate, including my home located at 42 Maple Street, all bank accounts, investment accounts, and personal belongings. My other granddaughter, Claire, will receive my jewelry collection and $10,000 as a token of my love. I sat there frozen while the words bounced around in my skull. Token of my love. $10,000. The house alone was worth $450,000. The investment accounts held another $200,000. My grandmother had just left my sister over $600,000 and given me the spare change. Jessica reached across the table and touched my hand. "I know this is hard," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, "but Grandma wanted to make sure the house stayed in good hands. She knew I'd take care of it." I yanked my hand back. "This doesn't make sense. Grandma told me we'd split everything. Why would she change it?" The lawyer, an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, adjusted his glasses. "The will was updated 6 weeks ago. Your grandmother signed it in the presence of 2 witnesses. It's completely legal. 6 weeks ago." That was exactly when Jessica had shown up with Derek and the lawyer. My stomach turned to acid. "You did this," I said, my voice shaking. "You manipulated her when she was dying." Jessica's face hardened. "I did nothing. Grandma made her own choice. Maybe she realized who actually cared about family legacy and who just wanted a payout." The accusation hit me like a slap. I had given up everything to take care of her while Jessica couldn't even bother to call most weeks. And now I was being painted as the selfish one. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked out of that office with my jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth would crack. For weeks, I couldn't function. I moved into a friend's apartment because I had nowhere else to go. Jessica took possession of the house immediately and started renovating. She posted pictures on social media of the new kitchen counters and hardwood floors with captions like "Grandma would be so proud." Every post felt like a knife twisting deeper. I tried to contest the will, but my lawyer told me the same thing. Unless I could prove Jessica coerced or manipulated Grandma, which would require evidence, there was nothing I could do. The will was legal. The witnesses had signed. It was over. Except I couldn't let it go. Something about the whole situation felt wrong. Grandma wasn't senile. She'd been weak and in pain, but her mind was sharp until the very end. Why would she suddenly cut me out after everything? I started digging. I requested copies of Grandma's medical records to confirm her mental state during the weeks leading up to the will change. I pulled her bank statements going back 2 years. I talked to her neighbors. And slowly, piece by piece, I started to see a picture that made my blood run cold. 3 months before Grandma died, Jessica had opened a joint bank account with her. Over the next 12 weeks, $75,000 was transferred out of Grandma's primary savings account into that joint account. Then, in the 2 weeks after Grandma's death, Jessica moved all $75,000 into her personal account. When I confronted her about it over the phone, her voice was icy. That money was a gift. Grandma wanted me to have it early to help with expenses. Do you have that in writing? I asked. Because the bank records show you made those transfers, not her. She hung up on me. If you want the full truth, hit like so this story reaches more people who have been betrayed by family. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on my friend's couch staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction I'd had with Jessica over the past 3 years. The surprise visit with the lawyer. The constant comments about how I should get back to my career and stop hovering over Grandma. The way she'd smiled at the funeral while I sobbed. It all felt calculated. I kept digging. I found the 2 witnesses who'd signed the updated will. One of them was Derek, Jessica's husband. The other was a woman named Linda Cortez who worked as a part-time caregiver. I tracked Linda down through the agency Grandma had used. When I called her and explained who I was, she went quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that confirmed every suspicion I had. Your sister told me your grandma wanted to update her will. She handed me the papers and told me where to sign. I didn't read them. I just thought I was helping. Did my grandmother actually say she wanted to change the will? I asked. Linda hesitated. I never spoke to her about it directly. Your sister handled everything. That was it. Jessica had orchestrated the whole thing. She'd brought the documents. She'd positioned the witnesses. She'd moved money. And she'd done it all while I was busy keeping Grandma alive. I hired a forensic accountant who specialized in elder financial abuse. It cost me most of the $10,000 I'd inherited, but I didn't care. 2 months later, he handed me a report that outlined a clear pattern. Unauthorized transfers. Joint accounts opened without clear consent. Timing that aligned perfectly with Grandma's weakest moments. It wasn't definitive proof of coercion, but it was close. My lawyer said we might have a case, but it would take years and cost a fortune I didn't have. I was ready to give up. And then I got the invitation. Our family reunion. Every 2 years, our extended family gathers at a rented lodge in the mountains. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone. It's supposed to be about connection and tradition. Jessica had taken over planning it this year. The invitation arrived in my mailbox with a handwritten note. Claire, I hope you'll come. Family is everything. Love, Jessica. I stared at that note for a full minute. Then I smiled. She wanted family. I'd give her family. I spent the next 6 weeks preparing. I made copies of every bank statement, every medical record, every email and text message I'd saved. I organized them into a presentation that even a child could follow. Money out, dates matched, witnesses who never spoke to Grandma, timeline of manipulation. I practiced my speech in front of the mirror until I could deliver it without my voice shaking. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the truth. The reunion was held at Pine Ridge Lodge, a massive cabin with vaulted ceilings and a stone fireplace big enough to stand in. When I arrived, Jessica was already holding court in the main room, laughing with our Aunt Susan and Uncle Mike. She looked perfect as always. Hair blown out, designer jeans, that confident smile that made everyone think she had her life together. She saw me walk in and her smile faltered for just a second before she recovered. Claire, you came. She moved toward me, arms open for a hug. I let her hug me. I even hugged her back, because I needed her to think everything was fine. That night at dinner, Jessica stood up and gave a toast. She talked about family legacy and how grateful she was that Grandma had trusted her with the house. She said she was renovating it so future generations could enjoy it. Everyone clapped. I sipped my wine and waited. The next day was the big family gathering. Everyone assembled in the main room after breakfast. Kids running around, adults chatting. The energy was warm and chaotic. Jessica had planned games and activities. It was all very wholesome. Then I stood up. I walked to the front of the room near the fireplace and cleared my throat. Everyone gradually went quiet. Hey, everyone, I said, keeping my tone light. I know Jessica worked really hard on this reunion, and I'm grateful we're all together. But before we get into the activities, I need to talk about something important. Something that affects all of us. Jessica's smile froze. Claire, what are you doing? I pulled out a folder from my bag. I'm talking about Grandma's will and how my sister manipulated a dying woman to steal my inheritance. The room went dead silent. You could hear the logs crackling in the fireplace. Kids stopped running. Adults stopped mid-sentence. Every single pair of eyes turned to me. Jessica's face flushed red. This is not the time or place. Actually, I said this is exactly the time and place. Because family protects family right. That's what Grandma always said. So I think our family deserves to know what really happened. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. 6 weeks before Grandma died, Jessica showed up with a lawyer and had her sign a new will. That will left Jessica everything and gave me $10,000. I held up the document. Here's the will. Notice the date. Notice the witnesses. One of them is Jessica's husband. The other is a caregiver who admitted to me that she never actually spoke to Grandma about it. She just signed where Jessica told her to. Aunt Susan frowned. Wait, what? Jessica stepped forward. Claire, you're twisting this. Grandma wanted me to have the house. She told me herself. Did she? I asked. Because I have her medical records from that time. I held up another paper. She was on heavy pain medication. Morphine, oxycodone. Her doctor noted in his records that she was experiencing confusion and disorientation. And yet somehow she was coherent enough to make a major legal decision that cut out the granddaughter who'd been caring for her for 2 years. Jessica's jaw tightened. You have no right to air this in front of everyone. I have every right, I said, my voice steady. You stole from me. And you did it in front of our family while pretending to be the good daughter. So now they get to see the evidence. Comment justice if you believe she deserved to be exposed. I pulled out the bank statements next. 3 months before Grandma died, Jessica opened a joint account with her. Over the next 12 weeks, $75,000 was transferred out of Grandma's account into that joint account. Then 2 weeks after Grandma died, Jessica moved all of it into her personal account. I walked closer to where Jessica stood holding up the highlighted transactions. These transfers happened on days when I was at the hospital with Grandma during her chemo sessions. Jessica, you had access to her accounts and you drained them. Uncle Mike stood up looking at Jessica. Is this true? Jessica's face was white. That money was a gift. Grandma gave it to me. Show me the documentation, I said. Show me one email, one letter, one witness who heard Grandma say she was gifting you $75,000. She couldn't because there was nothing. I kept going. Here's a timeline. I laid a printed chart on the coffee table. Every transfer Jessica made, every document she had Grandma sign, every visit that coincided with money moving. It's a pattern. And when you look at it all together, it's obvious what happened. My sister saw a dying woman and she saw dollar signs. Our cousin Emma, who's a paralegal, picked up the chart and studied it. Her face darkened. Jess, this looks really bad. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I loved Grandma. I would never hurt her. You didn't love her, I said, and my voice finally cracked with emotion. You used her. I was there every single day. I bathed her. I fed her. I held her hand while she cried from the pain. And you showed up twice. Twice. And both times you walked away with something: money, signatures, control. The tears on Jessica's face looked real, but I didn't care anymore. She'd cried at the funeral too, and I'd believed her then. Aunt Susan looked between us, her expression torn. Claire, why didn't you bring this up sooner? I tried, I said. I contested the will. But my lawyer said unless I had hard proof of coercion, it wouldn't hold up in court. So I gathered the proof. And now you all get to see it. I pulled out the final piece. An affidavit from Linda Cortez, the caregiver. In it, she stated that Jessica had instructed her to witness the will signing and that she had never directly confirmed Grandma's wishes. She also stated that she felt uncomfortable about the situation but didn't know what to do. This woman was scared to come forward, I said, because Jessica threatened to report her to the agency if she caused problems. But she finally agreed to give a statement. I handed the affidavit to Uncle Mike. He read it slowly. Then he looked at Jessica. You need to explain this. Right now. Jessica's husband Derek stood up. This is a witch hunt. Claire is jealous and she's trying to destroy Jessica's reputation. I turned to him. You were one of the witnesses, Derek. You signed a legal document stating that my grandmother was of sound mind and wanted to change her will. But you're not a medical professional. You're not a lawyer. You're just Jessica's husband doing what she told you to do. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I faced the room. I'm not asking for your pity. I'm asking you to see the truth. My sister is not the person she pretends to be. She manipulated a dying woman. She forged relationships with witnesses. She moved money in secret. And she did it all while I was trying to keep Grandma alive. The room stayed silent. Then Aunt Susan spoke, her voice tight. "Jessica, if even half of this is true, you need to make it right." Jessica shook her head, tears streaming now. "I didn't do anything wrong. Grandma wanted me to have everything. She told me. Then why did she tell me we'd split it?" I asked. "Why did she say that to me 100 times? Why would she lie to me while telling you the truth?" Jessica had no answer. I picked up my folder and held it against my chest. "I have copies of everything here. Bank records, medical documents, witness statements, timelines. If anyone wants to see the full picture, I'll share it. But I'm done being silent. I'm done letting her get away with this. And I'm done pretending we're a happy family when one of us is a thief." I walked out of the room and onto the back deck. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grip the railing to steady myself. Behind me, I could hear raised voices. Aunt Susan demanding answers. Uncle Mike asking Derek pointed questions. Jessica sobbing. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. But I also felt free. For the first time in 3 years, I'd told the truth out loud, and everyone had heard it. About 20 minutes later, Aunt Susan came outside. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood next to me looking out at the pine trees. Then she spoke quietly. "I believe you, Claire." Jessica's face went pale when you showed those bank records. "She can't explain any of it." I nodded, not trusting my voice. "What happens now?" I asked. Aunt Susan sighed. "Your uncle and I talked to Jessica and Derek. We told them this needs to be resolved properly, either through mediation or through court. But they can't just walk away from this." Relief washed over me. That's all I wanted. For someone to see it. To acknowledge it. Over the next few months, things moved slowly, but they moved. Jessica agreed to mediation after Uncle Mike and Aunt Susan made it clear the entire family now knew what she'd done, and her reputation was ruined unless she made it right. In mediation, Jessica finally admitted that she'd pressured Grandma to sign documents when she was weak. She admitted the joint account transfers were not discussed with me. She admitted she'd manipulated the witnesses. The mediator recommended a settlement. Jessica would sell the house and split the proceeds with me equally. She would also return half of the $75,000 she'd taken from the joint account. It wasn't perfect. It didn't undo the years of pain or the betrayal. But it was justice. Type yes if you want to see all targets hit at once. The house sold 4 months later. I received $225,000 plus $37,000 from the account repayment. With that money, I paid off my debts, started my own marketing consulting business, and bought a small condo in a neighborhood I loved. Jessica and I don't speak anymore. I see her at family events sometimes, and we're civil, but the relationship is gone. Some things you can't come back from, but I'm okay with that, because I learned something important through all of this. Standing up for yourself, even when it's terrifying, even when it costs you relationships, even when the whole room is staring at you, that's the only way to live with yourself. If this shocked you, comment exposed below. My name is Claire. I'm 28 years old. And the day I exposed my sister at the family reunion, I got my inheritance back. Not because the system worked. Not because she had a change of heart. But because I refused to stay silent. If you've ever been betrayed by family, if you've ever had someone steal from you and smile in your face, if you've ever wondered whether telling the truth is worth the fallout, let me tell you this. It is. Every single time. Hit the like button if this story opened your eyes. Comment what you would have done in my situation. And subscribe because I'll be sharing more stories about people who fought back and won. The truth doesn't always win fast. But if you're willing to fight for it, the truth always leaves a mark.